It's a matter of the state of Michigan versus Markeel Winfrey.
Anna Buckingham for the people.
And Brian Brown on behalf of Mr. Markeel Winfrey, who is making his way. State your name correct. Markeel Winfrey, ma'am.
This is for a preliminary examination for police officer fleeing and eluding. Any preliminary matters before we begin the exam?
Not from people. People will be calling Sergeant Scott Williams.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury? You can have a seat.
Hello, Sergeant. How are you currently employed?
With the Michigan State Police.
Okay, and how long have you been working in that capacity?
I've been in the Michigan State Police for 10 years, and I've been in my current role for stories.
Okay, and are you currently a sergeant?
Yes.
And what are some of the duties associated with your job?
Currently, I'm the sergeant of our Secure Cities Partnership.
And were you working in that capacity on or about March 13, 2025, around 5 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the Secure Cities Partnership?
So the Secure Cities Partnership is Michigan State Police is going to be your officers that you see in uniform. LPD has their Violent Crime Initiative, which is like undercover officers, and we work hand in hand. Additionally, we will assist like the ATF, search warrants, traffic stops.
While working that day, did you have reason to respond to the address of 1029 Lathrop Street?
Yes, sir.
And is that in the city of Lansing, County of Ingham?
Yes, sir.
And what was your reason for dispatching to that address?
So we were at briefing with Lansing's SOS narcotics team. They advised that they were doing a search warrant on Lathrop Street. And while we were doing a search warrant, they advised that surveillance said that the subject might have been getting into a vehicle and leaving soon, so we started moving that way. And then prior to us and START, which is Lansing's SWAT team, getting to the residence, they said they were accessing the vehicle.
Okay, so did your focus from assisting with the search warrant shift at that point?
Yes.
And were you then pursuing that suspect?
Yes, they told us where the suspect was headed and they wanted to check the suspect.
Okay. And were you made aware where you should be looking for that suspect?
Yes, it was coming down Wall Street.
And are you aware of the name of the suspect who you were focusing on?
Yes.
What was his name?
Markeel Winfrey.
At that point, were you aware of what Mr. Winfrey looked like?
Yes. So at the briefing for the search warrant, we provided with his Secretary of State photograph, so his driver's license photograph.
And while you were in pursuit of that suspect, what happened next?
So I was not driving. I was in the vehicle as a passenger. They said the vehicle was coming down Wall Street up to Holmes.
I'd object to just the hearsay portion of what they said. He can testify, I guess, to what he observed, but that goes to the truth of the matter asserted where this particular car was at a particular time.
How do you get us effect on listener of where he was and why he was going there?
I agree that it goes more to the effect on the listener, so the objection's over.
You mentioned that you pulled up to Walsh.
Correct. We were told the vehicle was coming down Walsh, so we pulled up to the intersection of Walsh and Hill Street where we observed the vehicle.
Okay.
There was a black pickup at the stop sign, and behind the black pickup was our suspect vehicle. Which is,
okay.
We turned eastbound onto Walsh and then spun behind the vehicle to initiate the traffic stop.
And at that point, did you ever lay eyes on Mr. Winfrey?
I did.
And tell me about that. Where did you see him?
In the driver's seat.
Okay. In the driver's seat. And that was at the stop sign that you...
It was behind a pickup truck at the stop sign.
Okay. So he was in the driver's seat of the car that you were looking for?
Correct.
Okay.
Was that the blue Chevy Malibu?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant, do you happen to know what the posted speed limit at that location on Walsh was?
I'm not for sure, but it's a residential area. I'd say 25, 30, 35, something.
Okay. And in your capacity with MSP, is that residential areas, are they usually posted 25 miles around that speed?
Around, I would say 25 to 30.
Okay.
And I object to just the speculation. Either he knows or he doesn't know. He's speculating to what the speed is.
Do you know through...
Are you going to redirect?
I can. In your capacity as an MSP sergeant, you had said that includes traffic stops, interactions with vehicles, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it your understanding through your training and your job that residential areas, what the general posted speed limit is?
Yes.
And what is that?
25 to 30.
So you said that you saw Mr. Winfrey in the driver's seat of that Chevy. What did you do next?
I was in the passenger seat.
And who was driving? Okay.
We pulled up, kind of like, we weren't able to totally get around the vehicle, kind of like to the side of it, activated the emergency lights. I think the black pickup that was in front of him probably saw our lights, so the black pickup didn't move either. And at this point, the Chevy Malibu then went off the curb and went around the black pickup and it fled.
So the car in front of the suspect vehicle seem to stop because of the traffic light.
And I object to speculation on why they stopped.
Did the car stop when you turned on your lights?
Objection sustained.
And
We gotta slow down. Objection sustained. Are you re-asking this new question?
yes,
Okay.
I apologize.
Re-ask it again.
Did the truck in front of the Chevy stop when the lights were activated on the car?
Yeah, so the vehicle was already stopped at the stop sign, but when we activated the lights, it did not.
At that time, what vehicle were you in?
I was in,
Is that a fully marked patrol vehicle? And you said lights were activated. Were sirens activated?
he would have to speak on that aspect. I believe so, but I can't speak.
Okay. And were you in uniform at the time? And when you say you tried to initiate a traffic stop, can you elaborate on that? What actions you and the trooper took?
So whenever
And I object, he can say what he took. He just stated that he can't say whether or not this other trooper has sirens on, so he can say what he specifically did to initiate the traffic stop.
I'm asking what was done to initiate a traffic stop. So
To clarify, I get it. He can only speak to what he did. You need to repeat the
what
question.
was done to initiate the traffic stop?
the emergency lights are.
Okay. Okay. What does Mr. Winfrey do at this point?
He pulls off to the right side of the roadway, which would be the north side, onto the curb, the sidewalk. It goes around there, so it goes around that back onto Walsh.
Okay. And when you say that you said that you saw Mr. Winfrey through the window, would you be able to identify him? Do you see Mr. Winfrey in the court today?
I do.
And could you please point out where he is and an article of clothing that he's wearing?
Yes, sir. Second subject sitting over here with a black long sleeve with a white emblem on his left chest.
Your Honor, can the record reflect that the defendant has been identified?
Any objections identified? Objections noted.
No further question.
Morning, trooper. So you stated that you had a briefing prior to you going to this address.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and where was the briefing at?
So they hold it at it's called the Start Barn, which is the location for the SWAT team up at the airport.
Okay, and how far away from this briefing is the location? Roughly
Probably 10-minute drive.
10-minute drive. Okay. Now you indicated that at some point in time you allegedly got some type of notice that the suspect was whoever this was about to leave, correct?
Yeah, we received information from surveillance that the subject they were watching was about to get in.
Okay. And where were you when you got that information?
I believe we were just clearing the Start Barn when they said they saw him walking outside around the vehicle or near the vehicle, or I can't remember the exact information, but they gave us information saying that they thought he was about to leave and they wanted to see him.
Okay, so you're still about 10 minutes away, correct? Roughly, give or take,
Give or
nine
take.
to 10 minutes. Okay. And then you stated that, I guess you and your partner got into the car, started to proceed to that area, and then you received information that the suspect had left, correct?
We were really close to the residence when they advised that he had left.
Was really close.
I think on Pennsylvania and Walsh, so within several blocks.
Several blocks? Okay. So you weren't at the location when this individual left, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you stated you received information from surveillance?
Yeah, it was, yes, on the same area.
It would be fair to say that surveillance would be in unmarked cars, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you allegedly received information that the suspect turned on a particular street?
They advised he was traveling, would be westbound on Walsh,
Okay.
coming up.
If you know, was surveillance following this car?
I believe so. We had surveillance on the residence and we had surveillance around following also.
You say you believe so. Are you sure?
Okay.
Well, I know we had a lot of surveillance vehicles around, but they were given this information, so it was not on Walsh, so they had to follow. We couldn't see it from the house.
So you're speculating. So you don't know personally, definitively, whether or not somebody was following this car. True?
I guess that's sure. Yeah.
Okay. And then you allegedly intersected with this car or saw this car at what point in time?
When it came up to the stop sign behind the black pickup at Walsh.
Okay. You weren't given a license plate, were you, of this vehicle?
I don't recall if we were enough. I don't recall.
Okay, but had you been given one, you would be able to say, yes, I was giving this particular pertinent information. You would agree to that,
I mean,
right?
that would be part of it, yeah.
Okay. And you stated what kind of car is this?
Chevy Miller.
That's a very common car, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you allegedly saw this Secretary of State photo at the briefing?
Yes.
Do you know when this photograph was taken that you were seeing? You know?
It would say on his image, but
Okay, but did you put that in a report or anything like that?
No.
So you don't know if it's an outdated photograph?
No.
Okay, you don't know if individual's appearance would have been changed or appear different from the photograph date from the date of this particular
Objection calls for speculation.
No, he's asking, does he know or not? So it doesn't cause speculation. No.
I don't know the date for it.
Do you know if the individual in the photo, if you know, had braids?
And yes,
The person had braids?
Yes.
In the photo?
Yes.
Okay. Did you like upload a picture of that Secretary of State photograph like to your police report?
No.
You did? Now you were equipped with body cam, correct?
yes.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to review for today?
I did not review my body cam. No, my body cam really wouldn't be important because it's facing down here. We're all in a vehicle, so it'd be more the in-car video.
Okay. Glad you said that. Did you have an opportunity to review the in-car dash?
I did not. No.
You did not? Okay. Now, when you first came to, I guess, the street, you had to make a U-turn, right?
We did. Yes.
Okay. And when you made the U-turn, whoever this vehicle was it in your visual, correct?
I guess how
You
can ask the
didn't,
question.
when you made this U-turn, you couldn't see this particular car at that time, right?
No, we could. So when we went south on Holmes, they advised where the car was coming down Walsh.
Okay.
We spun back northbound, and as we were approaching the intersection, making a eastbound shot onto Walsh, that car was right there, so we could see the car and we could see the driver at the same time.
Is there a way I can tap into, do I just plug in this?
So in this courtroom, that plugin doesn't usually work. The best way to work is to log into my Zoom,
Okay.
and we can get you the Zoom ID, and then you can share your screen.
If you were able to see the video, you would recognize the video from now, Sergeant. Does this appear to be an accurate depiction of the incident on which you are testifying today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to play the video at 0 seconds. Trooper Harshman, that's your partner?
Yes, he was driving the vehicle.
Okay. I would like this admitted as defense A. Okay.
Any objection?
Starting at 0 seconds.
Did the video come with the, I will say, did it come with that writing on it?
That's why I was hesitant.
Yes, it came with the writing on there, which is it's great. Actually, the writing is
Yes, thank you, corner.
great. And okay, I'll play. I don't know why it's skipping like this.
Right, sometimes there's a lag.
Now, Sergeant, you would agree, I'm pausing at 14 seconds, I'm sorry. Sergeant, you would agree that you had to complete a U-turn, correct?
Yeah. So that was when we turned down the street. We were given the information where that we had to turn around. Yeah.
And you would agree at this point in time, your sirens are not activated, nor your lights activated, correct?
No, we're not up to the vehicle yet.
Okay. And I'm gonna pause at 44 seconds. And Sergeant, you would agree that you had to complete another U-turn?
Yeah, because we're facing, I guess, eastbound. He was facing westbound. So when he fled, we had to do a
Okay.
U-turn.
Without using the term fled, you would agree that at this point in time, you never came over your PA and said, hey, individual in whatever car, stop. You would agree to that, right?
Yeah, we never.
Okay. Thank you. You would agree that your sirens never came on where you hit your sirens to indicate to anybody in the vicinity that you may wanted them to pull over, correct?
So I'm not driving, so I didn't hit the sirens. I wouldn't be one of the ones that hit it anyways. At this point, no.
Okay, but you agree that watching this video, the sirens variable remained at 0, correct?
It did.
Okay, and you didn't yell out the window and say, hey, stop, did you? Okay, continue at 48 seconds. I'm gonna pause at 58 seconds. You would agree that at this point in time, your lights are at 0, correct? Your lights are off, correct?
Correct.
Okay. No sirens are on, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
This is at, I'm sorry, at 0:58 seconds, you said?
Yes, Judge.
No lights on?
Yes. No lights or sirens. Pause at 1:16. And you would agree at 1:16, no lights are on, no sirens are on, correct?
Yeah, at this point, I had the trooper turn it because we did not pursue.
Oh, okay. So at this point in time, the pursuit was terminated, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And previously to this point, you would agree that when you first got on the street, you had to do a U-turn, correct?
Yep.
When you made that U-turn, you agree that no lights were on, correct?
The first U-turn?
Yes, the first U-turn.
Yes, correct.
And you would agree that no sirens were on, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then when you made the second U-turn, after you completed that U-turn, you would agree that no sirens were on or lights, correct?
When we terminated, yes.
And you would agree that you never hit the sirens. The variable remained 0, correct?
It did, yes.
You agree that you didn't yell out the window, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You'd agree that you made no indication verbally to whoever was in the vicinity that you wanted them to stop. You'd agree with that, right? Honestly.
Other than the lights, no verbal, no.
Okay. But you'd agree that when you completed the U-turn, there were no lights on, correct? Just to be clear.
I guess you're talking about two different U-turns.
Okay, we'll go back.
You're talking like right when I initiated the stop?
The second U-turn. I'm going back to 37 seconds. This is the second U-turn, correct? You'd agree, right?
Correct. This is when the stop is being activated.
And you would agree at this point in time, nobody's in front of you, right? There's no car in front of you, right?
The suspect vehicle's right to the left, like tire right there.
Okay. And then no sirens are being activated, correct?
Based on the 0.
Okay. And you just saw the video, correct? You would agree that when that U-turn was completed, the lights variable went to 0, correct? Whether or not after your U-turn was completed, isn't it true that the lights were turned off?
So as the U-turn was completed there, when he pulled up to the stop sign, lights were on, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you, Sergeant.
Sergeant, you were just asked about lights in relation to the U-turn that was being made. When the lights were on, you had mentioned the car was right to the left and the tire was right there. How close do you recall the suspect car being to the patrol vehicle at the time the lights were initiated?
5, very close.
Okay.
Right next to each other.
And when those lights were activated, what did the suspect car do at that moment?
Pulled off the side of the roadway to the north, went up on the sidewalk and around the west.
So in that image where we had the stop sign, were they actually going up that curb to the right? Okay, so your lights were activated and that vehicle then jumped the curb. And Sergeant, you had said that, you were asked about the lights being turned off and the timing of that. You mentioned stopping engagement with the suspect vehicle.
Correct.
Do you know why that was done?
So as a sergeant, I'm in charge of our pursuits, whether authorizing or terminating them. And due to this not being with our policy within a violent felony, I just continue to.
Okay, no further questions.
I have a question. Is it on the body cam on the dash cam where the lights were actually activated?
It's the notation of the script on the screen
Okay.
that says light 1.
Can you go back to where that is?
Yes, I'll go back to that right here.
So right. Okay. Is that what the writing is for?
Yes.
Okay.
So it indicates siren. If it's 0, it's not on. 1 is on.
Okay.
So I will start at 30 seconds.
Okay. This is where the sirens are on.
No sirens.
Lights are on.
Yeah, lights are on. Yeah, lights go off.
That was at what time?
That is 56 seconds.
56 seconds.
Yes.
So I just want to know how long were the lights on? So stop. So that's the black pickup truck. This is the vehicle that allegedly the defendant or subject is in. Okay.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
And can I ask a couple additional questions?
Yes.
Sergeant, you testified that when you saw this particular vehicle, you had your lights on, correct? And you stated that this vehicle was a truck that was at the stop sign, correct?
There was a truck at the, yes.
Yeah, and you said after you put your lights on, this particular truck remained standstill, correct?
It is.
Okay, so let's watch this video because I'm kind of curious. Just to be clear, so I'm gonna go back to 30 seconds. Is this the truck you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
So we see this truck at 28 seconds. You then complete your turn, correct? I was pausing in at 54 seconds.
Correct.
Where's the truck at? Do you see the truck depicted on this video at 54 seconds? Yes or no?
At this point, no.
Okay. But you stated that the truck remained, correct?
Would you let me explain?
You stated that the truck remained, correct? And after you completed your turn, the truck didn't yield to your lights, did they? They drove off, correct?
At this point, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. No further questions.
So at this point, yes. Did you want to elaborate on that?
Yes. So when I made the statement that the truck stayed is what the reason on why the vehicle had to go up and around the dip, around the curve, because he didn't pull it off immediately. He stayed there as he saw the light, so that's what the suspect. And as we were doing our U-turn, then he pulled off and we were able to pull it.
So that's not something I would see on on the dash cam though.
No, because it would have been behind us.
Okay, so the truck stayed, the blue vehicle went around the truck.
It went around that telephone pole there and then back onto the roadway.
Around this telephone pole?
Correct. Off the right side.
So you're saying it got on the curb?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So actually circumvented that truck
Yes.
to get away from the location you were.
Correct.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Just backing up a little bit so I can see where the truck was stopped. Okay, so right here where the truck is stopped, you're saying the Malibu goes up on the sidewalk between where this curb is for this house and this pole, correct?
Yes, it goes to the right there. On the pole, you see the elevated sidewalk there? And
Yes, and then drives on the sidewalk?
Correct. And goes down that that lip there, you see the right side of the truck.
Yeah,
Goes down that lip and then back onto Wall Street around that truck.
there's like a raised area on these people's curb.
Correct.
Did he drive on that?
Yes, he drove over top of
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Did you go back to the scene and take any photographs of any tire tracks? Did you notice any type of damage to the car going over this curb?
it. We never caught up to the car, so I was able to look at it.
So at no point in time did you ever catch up to the car?
No, we weren't able to pursue it.
Okay. Do you know if this car had tinted windows or not?
They're partially tinted.
Partially tinted?
Yeah, it was a lighter tint, so
No further questions.
Any more questions for this?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sergeant, you may be excused.
Your Honor, will proceed to find over argument. Your Honor, for fleeing and eluding in the third degree, first, I have to prove that a police officer was in uniform performing his lawful duties, and a vehicle driven by the officer was identified as a law enforcement vehicle. We just heard testimony from the sergeant that he was in uniform in a fully marked patrol vehicle with another officer. We also saw through the video that that car had lights attached to it that were engaged at a certain point. We also heard that the reason for the response to that area, the Lathrop address, was because of a valid search warrant that was being executed with other law enforcement. We just heard testimony about the purpose of the officer being in that area. We also heard that on the way to responding to that area for that search warrant, the sergeant and trooper that he was with were notified that they were to turn their attention to pursuit of a suspect leaving in that Chevy Malibu vehicle. Second, we have to prove that the defendant was driving a motor vehicle. We had identification by the sergeant. He had testified that he had prior been informed of, he had been provided a picture of this defendant. As they were passing this vehicle, he saw through the driver's window and made identification of Mr. Winfrey and that he was in the driver's seat. Third, that the officer ordered the defendant to stop his vehicle. We heard testimony that the lights were on, attempting to initiate that stop. And fourth, the defendant knew of this order. This is evidenced by the testimony. The people would argue that he fled jumping a curb to flee. Once those lights were initiated at that stop sign behind that truck, the defendant chose to jump that curb and go around to then escape. I would argue that this shows knowledge of that order to stop. Fifth, defendant refused to obey the order by trying to flee or avoid being caught. Again, we've heard about that curb, going around, circumventing that entire vehicle in front of him at the stop sign, jumping the curb onto the neighbor's sidewalk. Six, that some portion of the violation took place in an area where the speed limit was 35 miles per hour or less. We heard testimony from the sergeant that this was a residential area. I think the court can probably take judicial notice that generally, and from the testimony, the residential area is 25 to 35 is the standard posted limit. Because I believe the people have met all of these elements by a probable cause standard. We have that identification of the defendant through the window and all their elements. We would request the court bind over for fleeing a police officer in the third degree with a habitual offender fourth notice. Thank you.
Judge, we would oppose bond over. First and foremost, them performing a search warrant allegedly is it's irrelevant. I think they're just trying to maybe throw some things into the court's, mind that I know the court's not going to take into consideration, but that doesn't matter. First and foremost, this officer, what valid reason did he have to stop Mr. Winfrey? He stated that they were allegedly there to do a search warrant and that he allegedly heard some type of information that Mr. Winfrey was getting in the car to leave. No arrest warrant. He didn't indicate that Mr. Winfrey had any type of traffic violation of which he should be stopped. He stated, I believe, not truthfully, that originally that he saw this truck and when he put his lights on, this truck remained at a standstill. We saw from the video that this particular truck was at the stop sign, and after the sergeant completed its U-turn, this truck was gone. This truck did not yield to the lights. How would this truck know that the sergeant was aiming for the car behind him? Obviously, these lights were no indication to anybody that a traffic stop was being performed. We saw him do a particular U-turn. It took him 20 seconds to complete this U-turn. From a reasonable standpoint, it would seem that he was pulling up to this particular yard and people were approaching. You saw people coming from outside, they were approaching. It seemed like his business was at this particular residence. He had no indication that he put his sirens on, yelled out the window, put on a PA, had any indication whatsoever to anybody, least of all Mr. Winfrey, that he intended for any vehicle to stop, especially if you're going the opposite way of a particular vehicle. He could have pulled on the side of the vehicle, and said, hey, pointed at him, you pull over, you pull over. Could have did a number of things. He had his lights on for all of what, 25 seconds? 20 of those seconds, he was completing a U-turn. And after he completed that particular U-turn, he turned his lights off. There's no indication whatsoever that anybody would have been under any knowledge that this officer intended him to turn around or stop. Now, he states that allegedly Mr. Winfrey went over the curb and did all this. From my observation of this video, it seemed that there's no room for Mr. Winfrey to go around this truck onto the curb, onto somebody's house, and then over a curb. Like, that just seems kind of far-fetched, especially from the vantage point where the officer would have been. He's in the passenger seat. So allegedly, when this is happening, his car is not even turned around in a position to even observe these particular things. So, Judge, even at a probable cause standard, we know this is not a trial, they have not met their burden for one, having even a purpose to even stop Mr. Winfrey. Least of all, any evidence that they notified Mr. Winfrey that he was being stopped and he then disobeyed that particular order. So, Your Honor, we would ask for this case to not bind over and be.
Any re-argument? Also, can you pull that video up on your computer again?
Yes.
So I can see, pull it up to the 54-second mark. You can re-argue.
Sure. First, to just touch on the beginning of defense's argument of minimizing search warrant, that obviously is a valid reason for a response, and the duties of the sergeant and trooper in that moment to be appearing, being told by the dispatch that we need you to redirect your attention to respond and pursue a person of interest in connection with that warrant. I don't believe it's reasonable for anyone to expect officers to lean out their window and yell, stop. And clearly it wasn't necessary in the situation because, as we heard from the testimony, the moment the lights were initiated, there was a desperate response, jumping a curb and fleeing. Additionally, I think defense is making a large deal about the truck not being in view of the dash cam, which I find highly overemphasized. I'd argue the truck absolutely knew that the lights were for him because in that moment when the lights were initiated, the car behind him jumped the curb, went around a pole and pulled off. I think it's reasonable to understand why someone at a stop sign sees top lights behind them and the car behind them immediately jumps the curb and zooms off for that car no longer to be in the area, because clearly this person behind me is fleeing from the police. They're not interested in me. Your Honor, we would just ask that you bind over based on this. Thank you.
One question.
Yes.
What is the lawful reason for the stop?
Lawful reason is the pursuit of the suspect based on
A search warrant?
There is a search warrant, and I do have a
Search
copy of
warrant
that.
for the
Address that the defendant was seen.
Well, that's not, how does that translate how does that translate to a lawful stop of this person in a vehicle for a traffic stop?
It was based on another ongoing investigation in connection to that search warrant.
We don't have anything here. I don't think we have anything here that was put on this record that supports a lawful stop. I recognize that there was probably a search warrant, and we're not disputing that, but he said that they were executing a search warrant on an address of 1029 Lathrop. How does that translate to I can just stop you randomly on the road for a traffic stop? Am I supposed to worry what I'm going to stop you and take you back to Lathrop? I'm confused about that. I have more questions. The concern about, I think it's unreasonable. Officers don't usually yell out of the vehicle, hey, stop. But a state trooper vehicle has the ability to intercom, and that's reasonable. So that's my other question. Can you bring this to 50? I don't want to touch your computer. 54-second, where the 54-second mark is? Right there. Because it's not very clear on the computer. But counsel, I want you to go for pro-chair so that you can see my concern at the 54-second mark, unless you can share your screen again right at the 54-second. Sure. I do share the concern that the sergeant trooper testified that the black vehicle had stopped. Trooper hasn't even done a complete U-turn here. He hadn't even finished. There's no black truck there. So that's not true. The black truck didn't yield because it's gone. As you can see at the angle of where this trooper is, he hasn't even turned all the way around yet. So the black truck couldn't yield. The other reason why I want you to stop there, because I'm trying to figure out how big is this sidewalk that a vehicle could get on it. That's why I asked, did he drive on the people's yard? Do you see these leaves and stuff here? I don't even see skid. I don't see any marks where anybody drove through and from here.
Your Honor, I would represent.
You're going to cut me off while I'm
No,
explaining?
I'm not.
Okay. I don't see any place here where a vehicle has driven through there. And I'm looking at the picture. I'm pretty sure I could probably zoom in too. But there's nothing there to show me that he drove on the grass here with his vehicle and then back into the street. So that's my concern. Where's that evidence?
Your Honor, I would add that there's audio to this and the interaction with neighbors after that can supplement that. I don't have that specific video right now accessible to pull up. I also know that would call for interactions with neighbors that are occurring, but just to kind of aid in the situation in this video and further explanation of responses to what had just happened, that would be the reason that.
That's not evidence that's before this court. And obviously, the prosecution would have reasonably foreseen that the court's going to have questions about, did he jump the curb? Because that's what they're saying. He jumped the curb and that he drove on the sidewalk. That's why I had to slow it down, because I'm trying to figure out how big is the sidewalk that a car could get on there. I also agree that if an officer pulls the way he pulls in and turns on lights on, I don't think he is stopping me either. If the prosecution could show me evidence that he jumped this curb, then that's different. The problem is, I have now a sergeant trooper who's telling me that the black truck yielded. Before he even turned around, the black truck's gone. It'd be different if I could see him turn around and the black truck was still there. Then that makes the story make sense that the blue Malibu went around him and left. But the black truck is gone, which calls into credibility of the story. Why is the black truck gone? And he just told me the black truck was there, and I'm looking at the video. Then I'm looking at the grass and the leaves. I don't see where anyone drove through there. You're saying there's some evidence that supports that, but you didn't admit it. I don't know how I'm supposed to resolve that. This is did you have an argument?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. This is the date set for a preliminary examination. The burden is squarely upon the prosecution to establish probable cause. That's more than mere suspicion that the alleged crimes occurred, alleged felony occurred, and that you, Mr. Markeel Winfrey, are the individual who committed the alleged felony. This is a felony charge of fleeing, eluding in the third degree. We had the testimony today of one trooper, Sergeant Scott Williams from Michigan State Police. He stated that on or about March 13th, 2025, that at or near the area of 1029 Lathrop or near Walsh Street, that he was working with the Secured Cities partnership, and that they were executing or to be executing a search warrant at that address, that he was advised or notified through surveillance, not through dispatch, that the suspect or subject would be leaving and that he was coming down Wall Street, that he had been provided a picture of the suspect during the briefing. It was the Secretary of State ID or photo, and that the name of the suspect being Markeel Winfrey, which the witness identified here in court. Sergeant Trooper testified that as they were approaching the area at the intersection, that there was a black pickup truck and a blue Chevy Malibu behind it, which the court saw in Defense Exhibit A. Based on that Sergeant Trooper's training and experience, this area is an area where the speed limit should be 25 to 35 miles per hour. Also, he indicated this trooper was not operating the MSP vehicle, but it was a fully marked a state police vehicle, that they were in fully marked uniform. Trooper Harshman was driving. He stated that there was a time during this, what he calls a pursuit, that the vehicle that the MSP was in activated their lights. He testified that when the lights were activated, that the suspect, Mr. Winfrey, pulls up off on the curb, drives through the telephone pole, around the telephone pole that is, and proceeds down Walsh, evading the officers. Again, it should be noted that when questioned, the trooper testifies that there's a black truck that recognized or saw the lights and that he yielded. But his testimony is that the defendant, or the vehicle that the defendant supposedly was in, did not yield. The court does have concerns about the veracity of that portion of the testimony, because the court is looking at the exhibit of the dash cam, in which at this point, because it did take, I noted how long it took for the trooper to turn the vehicle around. I believe from the time that the lights were activated, which is at the 30-second mark. This right here depicts the 54-second mark. We're talking 24 seconds it took for him to even get to this point. He hasn't even fully turned around yet in 24 seconds, which if you're in the pursuit or you're trying to stop me, and you're going in the opposite direction, you're going to probably have to get behind me and turn those lights off within sooner than 30 seconds for me to assume that you're pulling me over. When we saw the trooper pull his vehicle up, he pulls it off at a diagonal. He's completely facing, even before the defense attorney brought it up, I had already wrote that down. He's completely facing the yard of this house. I would assume you're going to speak to these people. I see people coming there. So if I am there, that's what I would assume. However, if in fact the trooper's statement could prove true here, that the black truck reasonably assumed that the officers were trying to turn around to get them, and he yielded, then I should see the black truck here. At the 54-second mark, before the officer could even get the vehicle completely turned around, there is no black truck. Even if we move it forward and see where the officer completely turned around, there's no black truck even in sight. It has been gone. It's for those reasons that I don't believe that the people have met their burden. This case is dismissed for lack of probable cause.
Thank you, Judge.